Wow, thank you, Dr. Luyaluka. I'm struggling to pin down one point on where to start with some of the fascinating precepts and concepts that you've discussed and brought out. And obviously, at the recognition that we've probably got 1,000,001 questions coming from our audience, I will keep my musings and questions to you very, very brief. I think the place I'd want to start is where you finish. So when white will become black and black will become white, and perhaps maybe you can expand on the meaning of white and black and the significance in the cosmological sense of these two colors. I think people may find it difficult to understand why there needs to be those juxtapositions.
This has not to be taken as the rational leap. It doesn't mean that we are going to sustain a change of scenes. No, he didn't mean that. What he means is that while for the time being, the lunar paradigm, which is the paradigm used by the West, the materialistic paradigm, has preponderance over the African black paradigm. He said, from the year 2000 on, we will sustain a reverse of the situation. And the solar paradigm of the black people will take the lead and become the dominant epistemological paradigm that will be tracing the way. And this means the return of solar science, solar religion, which is a scientific religion, and the return of solar technology, which is a technology which is very cost-effective, cost-efficient, and which demand less effort, most efficient and so on.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's an epistemological shift.
Thank you. So basically, when you're saying white, you're referring to the lunar and solar paradigm in African people.
When I say lunar, I mean the Western paradigm, which is based on the assumption that reality is material. Right. I call that paradigm a lunar paradigm. What I call solar paradigm is the African paradigm, which is based on the proposition that reality is ultimately spiritual. So those are two different paradigms.
Got you.
The solar paradigm was the one used by ancient Egypt and is the one used by African traditional knowledge.
Got you. Thank you. Thank you. So we have a question here that pertains to what we're talking about, which is the name of the author of the concept that you mentioned. Someone missed it as you were speaking.
Which concept?
So when you said the black will become white and the white will become black, which author wrote that?
Ah, yes, it is Simon. It is Simon Kimbangu.
Simon Kimbangu.
The greatest of the Congo prophets. Simon Kimbangu. He gave that concept during one of his sermons at a forest at Manzansanda, when he was in the clandestine phase of his mission. He was hunted by the Belgian authority, colonial authority.
Right.
And during that hiding, he said to his disciple, beware, you are going to suffer, but those folks will go. You will have your independence. That will be only a nominal independence. But later on, during the year 2000, you will get your true spiritual independence, which will lead to your technological and social independence. So that's where we are now.
Yeah.
We have to struggle for that to happen.
Yeah. And something else that I personally missed, when you said there were 3 levels of the spirit, and you said the Most High, there were 2 others that I think there was a distortion on the line, but I missed those. But I think that was really important to connect with your idea of solar technology and using a new pedagogy to translate into the material, I guess, manifestation of the invisible. So could you go back and just explain those 3 levels again?
Yes, we have seen that God, the Most High, is all in all, everything in the celestial level. Every child of God, every creator is a manifestation of the Most High. So the Most High is the ultimate cause. The Most High, we can thus say, is the spirit, the animating principle, the ultimate animating principle, the ultimate substance. So he is spirit. But that spirit is a transcendent one. So the first, on the level of the hierarchy, we have first God as the transcendent spirit. But God being transcendent, he cannot act directly in the even in the celestial level. So he acts through his children, according to Trinity, solar Trinity. He acts through his children. Therefore, we come to the conclusion that the children of God are divine spirits governing each an aspect of reality. Why? Because God is immutable. So they have all the same opportunities. So we have the God the Most High, the Supreme Spirit. We have the children of God. In Bukongo, we call them the Bikinda. We call them also Loa. Loa in Voodoo, Haitian Voodoo, or in Alabama, no, in Louisiana, they say Loas. It is a transliteration of the Loa of the Congo, which means solar, which allude to the sun. Now, the temporal universe is only a manifestation of the invisible universe, the true universe, the only true universe. So all the reality, every reality in the temporal universe is only a manifestation of the reality of the invisible universe. Therefore, we came to the conclusion that at the temporal level, every good phenomena is governed by a divine spirit, which is the manifestation of a Bikinda, a Loas. And that spirit is called in Bukongo Bakisi. Bakisi is in plural. The singular is Nkisi, you know, which Nkisi is abusively, incorrectly, wrongly translated as fetish. It is not fetish. Nkisi means power or spirit. Nkisi has power become in plural Minkisi. But Nkisi has spirit becomes in plural Bakisi. So we have that 3 level of spirit: God, the Bikinda, or the Loas, and the Bakisi.
Wow, wow, thank you for that. So is this why you were saying that the pedagogy of the West in terms of the ending or perfecting of reason can never satisfy the African, can never be complete, and a way in which to, I guess, access this solar technology for the African, because we've got to look more into the solar education and being able to access the invisible, rather than the focusing on the philosophical and the brain and that which is in matter. Is that why you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. For example, in technology, let's take the construction of the pyramids. Many theories have been drawn Aristotle said there has been a machine made of wood, such, etc., etc. Even today, they are trying to implement, to imagine some machine used by the Egyptians in order to build the pyramids. That the least answer, the solar answer, is that the wave of a stone is a spirit of way. When someone grows spiritually, he can be able to say to the spirit, please leave the stone for a moment. The spirit of wave will leave the stone, and he will manage the stone as a simple paper and say later to the stone, come back. The same method has been used in the Bible to raise an axe that was fallen into water. The same method is eluded by Jesus when he said that you can say to a mountain, go there and live there and go that other place. So we can command the spirits because we have, remember in our first conversation, I said that the moon to the human being is actually a divine being. He has the Logos in him. So with the power of the Logos, we can command the spirits and they will obey us. And this is the basis of the solar technology.
Wow.
On the educational level, the system of the Western broadcast consists in training the reason, training the brain in order for one to be able to develop his spirit, has the ability of perceiving. But in ancient Egypt, that's what was used. The system that was used in ancient Egypt, in Bukongo, was to liberate the soul from the shackles of the body for purification. And once the soul is liberated from the shackles of the body, the spirit of man is free to go for higher level and acquire knowledge. Remember, we said that man has several bodies. We call the body in Congo Nitu. Now, actually, Nitu and body are not synonymous because body is essentially material. But man has several Nitu, the visible Nitu and the invisible Nitu. The invisible Nitus are considered to be the true Nitu. So if we consider the visible Nitu that man has now, and the next invisible Nitu, that next invisible Nitu is what the Egyptians used to call the Ka, of the spirit's body. And it is accompanied by the Ba, which is the soul. And the Egyptians were insisting on the fact that the Ba, or the soul, is never in the visible Nitu, while the Greek were sustaining the opposite proposition, that the soul is included in the visible Nitu. So these are two opposite pedagogical perceptions. Right. The perception of the Egyptian is the visible Nitu is only an appearance. So man must struggle to know this and to purify himself so that the Ba will be free to go to higher plane and be get in touch with the ancestors who have the needed knowledge and come back, and the Ka will have that knowledge and man will be enriched.
Wow. I mean, Dr. Luyaluka, I hear everything that you're saying and completely understand. And actually, my car is receiving it. But I want to.
That's great.
Yeah, but I want to end my questions by this concept of death, actually, and the struggle with the need to, actually, for those who have only had a Western pedagogy and now are anchored in the Western paradigm, and perhaps don't have the will or the trust then to go to practice this solar technology and use it, right? So what advice would you give us for those who are struggling and we have this discord inside us?
You know, when I was in third form at primary school, my teacher told us about the kind of people who are called in French savant. Savant, I think he's 17 in French, he's scholar, big scholar, 7, scientist. So I went back home and asked one of my cousins, what kind of study have I to do in order to become a servant? He laughed at me and directed me to another cousin who thought, that's an involved quality. You don't have to study in order to acquire it. Nigel, what is awkward? I didn't believe him. I kept on believing that if I study enough, I can become a servant. Later on, I discovered I was right. They were wrong. There is a kind of study that can make of you a servant. It is the kind of study the Egyptians used to undertake. That it is a kind of study that purifies your soul. So what I'm saying to my African brothers and sisters is that to your lunar education, to what you have learned from the West, add the traditional African divine initiation. And if you add this, you will become more efficient than we, because it will develop your intuitive faculty. Now, the least way to do it is this one. I will say, live your purity, because purity is the key ingredient that allows you to get in touch with illuminated ancestors. So that's the point. We have to live our purity in order for us to easily get in touch with our illuminated ancestors. You must remark that the materialistic trend brought by the West tend to draw us in the opposite direction, indulge sin, instead of purify yourself, purify yourself.
So this notion of purity, is that what you meant by the initiates in the Egyptian mystery systems as death, a symbolic death to your desires and your fleshly kind of cravings, all these kind of, you know, things that our body kind of pulls us to, but away from the spirit and the knowledge and the solar technology.
Death was a symbolical step, which meant the willingness to abandon the old way of living, the willingness to abandon the old way of conceiving things, the materialistic perception of things, and the willingness to gain a more spiritual perspective of life, of things, of being. That's death. You cannot die, you cannot gain the new perception if you don't die. We have to die daily. Daily, we have to abandon the old materialistic way of living to gain the logos, to live the fullness of being in us and the fullness of being around us. Because remember, I said that the logos is the fullness of being in us, but also the fullness of being around us. And which implies that man is actually the good he is spiritually conscious in him, but also the good he is spiritually conscious around him.
Mhm.
So we have a double duty to care for ourselves, to care also for our community.
Ashe, Ashe. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Luyaluka, for answering my questions. I'm going to go to our audience. We've got, I think, 12 or 13 people in the class today, and I'm sure that they're bursting with comments and reflections that they want to share with you. So this is your opportunity to connect. And how we do this at the center is, if you have a question for the doctor, raise your virtual hand. Please feel free to come off mute and on camera and have your discussion with him quickly. We ask that questions are brief and to the point. We don't want any long oratories or people hogging the mic and long pretexts, but now is your opportunity. We have, I think, 40 minutes or so with the doctor until Thursday. So if you want to ask your question, please do so now. Let me just open my chat here. And of course, if you're shy about coming on camera or audio, please, you can use the chat function to pose your question to me, and I'll pose your question to the doctor. Okay, so we have one from Sonia. Yes. So Sonia is here.
Yes, hello, Doctor. Thank you so much. That is really very informative. I've been trying to follow an ancestral path for the last few years. I've done quite a lot of traveling to different parts of Africa. I'm understanding everything that you say, and from a Caribbean perspective, you said not to hug the mic, I won't be long. There is so much resistance to understanding this technology because of the Christian overlay that we've been through. One of the problems that I have is, I know some people that follow the Orishas, they follow Santeria. Others follow, go to, a lot of African Americans, they go to Nigeria, they have temples springing up in America. Once they start on the path, they have connections and they have continuity. My question is, some people say you need to experience it, you need to go to the temples, you need to not become a priestess necessarily, that's not everybody's path. But as an individual person, I'm quite interested in Voodoo, but I'm interested in other technologies. I'm interested in, can we do this individually? Once we follow the ancestors. Do you understand what I'm saying, Nigel? I have an issue with, I don't think I want to follow a unity. I haven't found one I relate to, but following it individually is quite difficult. So I was just interested in this because a lot of people are talking about the African diaspora going back, but we're so disconnected. It's so difficult to find our way to continue to follow on the path when we don't know our knowledge, we don't know where it's coming from, we don't know whether to follow the Voodoo tradition or the Orishas, so, or the solar technology, or maybe we explore it all. I'm just curious, that's my dilemma at the moment. Does that make sense for you?
Makes sense to me.
Yes, it is possible for you to take your own path and do it individually.
Okay.
The difficulty is only that when I say to people that in order to do it, you can connect with primitive Christianity. Not Christianity has brought by the white people, but Christianity has its walls taught by Jesus. People frown at this and say, not Bible, the Bible, which is a great mistake. Let me tell you one thing. The great thing that the Congo people realized during their encounter with Christianity, they realized that what the white people was trying to sell to them as culture was only a bad rendition of what they had already. And that's why one of the prophets, Kimpavita, changed even his name, her name. Her name was Beatrice Timba, but he became Kimpavita, which means we were the first at that game.
Oh.
The Congo people realized that the principles of Christianity, of true Christianity, are the very same principle of the Egyptian religion, of their religion. If you happen to get that truism, you can reconnect yourself by using those principles. That's actually what I did. I never went through a traditional initiation as such. No. But one day I took the book of Fukiao, his first book, which is the Mukongo and the world that surrounds him. I read and reread that book because I said to myself, this one has talked with the latest initiates of the labor. So they told him the secret. I didn't find it. So I prayed. I said, Father, show me what I should read. And the thought came to me, study just the songs. So I began to study the main song of the Lemba, which say this: from the time of the ancestor, from the time of the here living, bracelet and bracelet knots. Hey, Mawungu, they gather around you, those who eat. The thought came to me to study this along with the citation of 3 John chapter 1, 1 John chapter 3, 1 to 3. Behold, we are now child of God. What we have been have not yet been manifested. What we shall be has not yet manifested. But when it shall be manifested, we shall be like him. If you take that declaration, you think, behold, we are now children of God. But what we shall be is what we are now, because we are so now potentially. But we will be that manifestly. And the condition for us to be that manifestly is purification. And if you came back to the song of Lemba, you realize that the initiate is being called Mahungu. Hey, Mahungu. Now, Mahungu means the one who manifests the Logos, the fullness of the divinity, that is a child of God. But that man went to the initiation in order to become a Mahungu. But he is already being called Mahungu. He is so only potentially. The condition for him to become so manifestly was purification. If you take the Egyptian book of the dead, the dead one, who is the main character of this book, is the Osiris Ani. And the Osiris Ani, once in the beyond, he claims the right to be an Osiris. But he is already being called Osiris Ani. He is so potentially, but he lives a life of purity. That's why he is claiming now to be so manifestly. So you see, in all those three, you have the same schema, which is we are children of God potentially. We have to become so manifestly, and the condition for this is purification. This is the summary of initiation. If you understand this, you can do it by yourself.
Okay, I get that. Okay, thank you very much. Please put the name of that book in, Nigel, that Doctor was talking about. Thank you.
The Simon Kibangu.
Oh, is it the same one?
No, the book that I was reading was the book
of the Dead.
Fukiao. Fukiao. That's his name. That's his first book. The Mukongo and the word that surrounded him. That I translate. it is in French, the Mukongo and the world that surrounded him.
Dr. Luyaluka, I want to be upfront and frank with you, and I want you to be upfront and frank with me on this notion of purity. Thank you, Benjamin. I see your hand. We'll come to you. But why can we be very direct about this? So when you say purity in terms of our everyday behavior, particularly in the West, when I hear that word, I'm assuming you mean things like one's diet, right? One's conduct, one's sexual conduct, one's basic everyday human, I guess, interactions, making sure, you know, you don't lie, for example, that you show good faith to people, that you are kind to people. These are the kind of things, when you say purity, I think of. But I want to be clear that we all have the same notions, so we can all have the same idea of the things that we perhaps need to look at in our individual lives that we can do better.
Nigel, let me first mention this. When I speak of purity, I don't expect any one of you to become overnight a saint. I'm not a saint. I'm some area in which I'm struggling. I know that. The important thing is not for me to become a saint overnight. The important thing is for me to live my higher sense of moral principle. That is the important thing. What do I understand of loving Nigel? If I understand this, do I abide by this today? That's the important thing. The important thing is not to become like Jesus, become like Moses, to become like Simon Kimbangu. No, to live my higher sense of principle. And when I speak of purity, I said I give a simple schema. I say to people, affirm your purity in the present, in the future, and in the past. I affirm that sin never did you good. Even if you did believe that before, now you must know that sin never did you good. The more you do this, sin will come in and tell you, Nigel, this you did. You will come and tell him that was false, that was bad, and it never did me good. By the time you are asserting that sin never did good, you are exercising your dominion over sin, and you still will be left behind you. It works.
Right. Thank you for that. That's really powerful and comforting to know that I don't have to be a monk and join the monastery. Just yet, anyway.
No, you don't.
Right, we have a question from Benjamin. Benjamin, if you want to come off mute and camera, if you want to.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your presentation again. My question is actually quite similar to what I asked last week. But as you said, it's important for us to link back to our ancestors, especially our elevated or our holy ancestors, like you said, our higher ancestors in the ancestral plane. But how do we do that? Or what do you think the best way to maneuver around that when we've been conditioned to fear some of these, some of these experiences and fear some of these solar technologies that you spoke about, like the healing in the forest and so on. So these things are very real to a lot of us Africans. They're very real. We don't deny that they're there, but because of how we've been brought up, maybe in our family or in our country, we fear those things. We fear to see someone get healed in 5 days from a gunshot wound. what would you say would be the best way to get over that?
Thank you. The best way is initiation, is to undergo an initiation in divine mystery. Remember, I spoke of divine mystery and human mystery. The human mystery, in the human mystery, you have the civil and the martial. But actually, you have the divine mystery, the human mystery, and the demonic mystery. The demonic mystery had no formal educational setting because it was.
I hope Dr. Luyaluka does come back, because I was looking forward to the answer of that question.
Yeah, we'll wait for him. No, someone else can ask. We'll wait for him.
Yeah, let's see if he comes back. I think this was about the time last week that he accidentally dropped off. So I think in Kinshasa, the temporal nature of the internet might be against us. Give me a moment, guys. I'm gonna call the doctor and just find out the state of play, and I'll be back in 2 minutes to give you an update, okay? Hey guys, just a quick update. So the connection in Kinshasa has cut Dr. Luyaluka off. So he's trying to come back on. And in the meantime, we have one of Dr. Luyaluka's disciples, I would say, or colleagues, should I say, Tata Intanakwa, with us, who wants to give us his thoughts on the question that Benjamin posed. And in the 5 or so minutes that we're going to wait for him to come back, we're going to invite some more thoughts and some more ideas on not just the question that Benjamin posed, but some of the questions, or should I say, some of the concepts that we've heard in the presentation overall. So Tata, over to you. And if you want to respond.
Hello. Yes, I can hear you. All right. To answer your question in terms of where he picked off in terms of initiation, if that is not a possibility at this particular time and moment, inside your own information environment, that should include each and every day if you're not doing any, if you don't have an altar, you can start by setting up an altar. That is the most simplistic thing right there. Set up an altar with water, incense, something from the land. If you're close to the sea, sand. If you're near the forest, some sort of dirt, something that represents nature itself. You have yourself your own sacred space in your own place. It's marked off and it's there. Each week, once a week on a particular day that you feel connected with and a specific hour, you do what you would say, you light a candle, you have your incense, and you give thanks to your own ancestors. This is starting the connection by reestablishing the balance between the living and the quote unquote the dead. We know they're not dead, but I'm just using that as an expression in this case here. But you are reconnecting in that case. If you happen to live near a forest or even near the beach in this case here, find a place where you can pour libation with water, preferably rainwater. You can get rainwater and collect rainwater and a vessel. That is your vessel. Each one of these items that you have on your altar, and even for the libation, is something that you don't use for anything else. That's what it's reserved for. During this act of doing this on a consistent, regular basis will keep you in mindful touch with your ancestors. In addition to that, if you do not speak an African tongue, then I would suggest then that you start the journey by finding out some terminology in an African tongue that is nearest to your bloodline, whether that is Tree or Wolof, what have you, the language in which your ancestors would have spoken, or the closest one to that. So you can imagine yourself going back to the year 1750. What were they speaking? They weren't speaking English. You can find something close to it, or even the same thing, where you could at least say the word ancestor, or the spirit, or grandmother, or great-grandmother in that language. That would also go a long way. And this is something that you can participate in every week. By doing so, you can maintain a balance, start the balance, maintain it, and then grow from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, can I just, yeah, all of that was great. I just wanted to clarify my question a little bit.
Okay.
What I meant was, to do all of that, to do all of those rituals and to go through all of those, you know, daily exercises is fine. And a lot of Africans, a lot of Black people really want to get into that and to reconnect to their ancestors. But how do they actually get over that initial fear of even the concept of even speaking to dead relatives, you know, and even inviting spirits to come into the house, you know? For a lot of us who grew up in Christian and Muslim households, you know, personally, that's not in my case. You know, I've been on my journey, and I do invite my ancestors into my household. But I know for my family members and a lot of people that I know around me, just that concept of inviting spirits into the house, you know, it's terrifying. So how do they get over that?
Well, I think a proverb comes to me: the best way to learn how to cut down a tree is to cut down a tree. So it's one of those things where you have the fear, the ignorance, the doubt. These are things that you would have to overcome within yourself. You get to decide what goes on within you. Nobody else should have that privilege, the privilege to make you happy, unhappy, or what have you. That comes from within you. And so that person, whoever that may be, has to have the what do you call it? The will to walk through that door.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Dr. Luyaluka is back on. I will close off my camera, and Mr. Nigel, back to you.
Thank you for that, Tata. Wonderful, I guess, advice. And I think I want to just segue back to Dr. Luyaluka by refreshing the question to him, which is, how do you begin? I mean, we understand that we want to connect with our ancestors. We understand that we want to, you know, commit to this solar technology, but how do we overcome that initial fear? You know, how do we overcome that initial first step of realizing that this is a journey and path we need to embrace?
Yes, I was saying that we have first to know that there are three kinds of initiation. The divine initiation, which was basic, the human initiation, and the demonic initiation, which is condemned. So the problem is that if we want to start, the first step is to get into the divine mystery, the divine teaching, which is based on the purification of being. That is the basic. You can do it by existing channels. Unfortunately, if you ask me, where are those channels? I'll tell you, I don't know. I know only for the time being one, which is Nzila Loa, the one I created. There might be other channels, but frankly, I have no connection with them. I don't know them. The one I know, the one I created, which is Nzila Loa, is a channel where people can get that initiation. The second thing is that you can get it by your own means. That's what I explained with the later question. I said that reading of the Bible, you can get that initiation. It is difficult, but you can. If you read my book, for example, book Congo, you can get the essential connective point, and that will lead you in order to make that kind of reading, which is also possible. So that's the point on initiation. You have to undergo an initiation on the divine mystery, either by yourself or by joining any one of the school of divine mystery. And one of those schools is Zilalua that we have created. Now, aside from that, one of the question, not the difficulty, is that we don't know who are those ancestors. We don't know how our ancestors who went through those initiations. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Is that you don't have to know which of your ancestors had done this initiation. In other words, you don't have to call them nominally when you pray, because in practice you have to call your ancestors during your prayer. We must remember that the gods respects our free will. If you call them, they will come and help you. If you don't call them, they will let you on your path. Let me give you a little example. I was struggling with disease one time. As I laid on my bed, I could not roll at left. I could not roll at right, because trying to roll gave me huge pain. And remaining also at the same position gave me also huge pain. So the solution for me was to raise myself and lean on the wall. That was also impossible, and every position I would take means huge big pains. So you know what I did, Nigel? I remained quiet. After remaining quiet, because I knew my ancestors was there, I asked them, you raise me, because I need to get out of this position. After that short prayer, I did exactly what I was doing before, but this time I did it without any pain. And I raised myself and I leaned on the wall. So the ancestors are there around you. If you associate them, they will associate themselves with you and help you with your problem. If you don't, they cannot force themselves into your situation. So you have to ask them, but you have also to live your purity, to live your higher sense of purity. So with those points, you'll be experiencing that connection with the holy ancestors who are there.
Ask and you shall receive is what I hear you saying. And engage with them.
Thank you, Doctor.
Awesome. Right,
My
now,
pleasure, Benjamin.
Now we have a question in the chat from Stella. Well, two questions in the chat. She says, if she understands well, the four elements were the four elements of African spirituality. I think you mentioned there were three elements of African spirituality. What is
three?
Their,
yes, three.
There was three, yes. And what is their role in our life, and how can we connect with them? And on the back of that, she also asks a question about totemism. Is that part of African spirituality?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure of the element he's speaking about. She's speaking about, because I spoke of the three basic propositions. I don't think she's speaking about this. And I spoke also of the three schools, the three academies. So I don't know if she's speaking about the academies or she's speaking about the main propositions. So that's quite difficult. What was the totemism?
Yeah.
Actually, totemism was an old practice. It is a practice which is still found in some ethnics. In my area, we don't anymore rely on totemism, but there are people. Oh, I have been, for example, told this. Someone went into a village, and when she arrived, the chief told him, and he spoke about to his ancestor, and she said, "This is our relative, a wife we have married. He came to visit us. If he wants to take something in the forest, please forbear with him and let him take it. He's one of us." And she explained to me that without this, every time he had to do that, he will be beaten by a serpent, because the serpent is the totem of that area. So totems were used in order to protect the interests of the community. And it is still used in many areas. But what I'm teaching people within the frame of Zila Loa is the basic science. I'm not even putting rituals. No, I'm teaching the essential. With that essential, anyone can practice them in his ethic, in his ritual, etc., etc. So I give the basic. Now, the four elements she spoke are the earth, water, fire, and the fire, the earth, the water, and the air. Aristotle was speaking about these four elements as being the four elements constituting the universe. But actually, those Greek students, every time they went to Egypt, they faced a big difficulty. The Egyptians were not willing to teach them the greatest of their science. And the greatest of the Egyptian science was their religion, which is an exact science. So they will take the element that they will hear and try to speculate. So he was kind of speculating. But actually, thanks to the prophet Simon Kimbangu, we know that these four elements are not elements of nature, but four states of the four possibility of the elevation, in the journey of man back to the heaven. Because we have strayed from our divinity, from the Logos. And the Logos, the Enlil of the Sumer, of the Ptah, or the Shu of the Egyptian, is identified with air. So the symbol of the Logos is air. Now we have drifted from the manifest expression of that Godhead, and we must regain it, but God respects our free will. At the moment of the fall, the initial moment of the fall, the fallen children of being found themselves stuck in darkness and chaos, and they remained in darkness and chaos. They were not annihilated. They could not be annihilated because if they were, God would have lost the relationship with something. But God and children of God became non-incarnated spirits, groping in darkness and chaos. So the Creator had to descend in that state of consciousness in order to help them get out of darkness. So the first thing he did is to repel darkness, to introduce order, and then to help them get an incarnation. Those who didn't accept, because they were free, those who didn't accept, they remained in that state of darkness and chaos, which is the fire. Those who accepted had two options: to accept the light in all its effulgence. That means to accept light by joining the Creator as the Bemba, which is the holy word of the ancestor. So they became the first inhabitants of the first Bemba. Those who accepted but not in the full effulgence, they accepted, but they crossed the Kalunga line in order to abide in the first Nzeke. Nzeke means the earth. So you have two possibilities. They have either to remain at the highest state of consciousness or at the lowest. The lowest is the earth. Now, for them to ascend the air, the path is again initiation, which enable them to go again from the earth to the water, from the water to the air. So that is the path of the elevation.
Thank you for that. Very comprehensive. And I actually wanted to ask that myself, but I didn't want to impose too much on questions. So I appreciate, Stella, you clarifying what you meant by your first question. And I think this may be our final question. We've got a comment from Edom in the chat, which is, have you seen a correlation of the Trinity concept across other religions and practices? Yes, that's the other thing I wanted to ask as well. The motifs seem so similar across all the different traditions, i.e., would he say that this is a universal concept that's the truth of spirituality creation, regardless of the different forms and meanings it manifests?
I didn't quite get that question. The difference between the Trinity that I mentioned and that of the other church?
No, so they're asking if you have seen similar correlations of the Trinity concept across different traditions and religions. And is this a universal concept? The universal truth?
The Trinity, the Trinity has used by the Egyptian is a universal concept because their religion was a science. So it is a universal concept because their religion was an exact science. In that manner, yes, it is a universe. Have I seen it in other spheres? Yes, of course. The ruling, take for example, the ruling of the Kingdom of Congo responded to that concept of Trinity. The Bakongo people are supposed to come from three children of the ancestor Zinga. Zinga had 2 sons and 1 daughter. The first son is Ntaku, and he is described as being the gold thread used by God to descend on earth, which means only that Ntaku and his descent are the case of the prophets. So the high priest in the kingdom of Congo belonged always to the clan Tsaku. The second one was Mpanzu. Mpanzu and his descendants are called to be the technician, the creative branch of the kingdom. So they manifest the creative power of Mumbaloa, the God creator. And the daughter is Zinga, and he was supposed to be the incarnation of the ruling power. Now, the Logos is defined in Congo as God the governor. In ancient Egypt, he defined as God, the God of order. Among the Baganda of Uganda, he is Muhanga. And Muhanga is also the God of order. So, but it's the same function. He is either God the governor, God of order, or the judge. And we know that these three are only the same function. So Zinga exercised the power of the Logos. So you have the three of them united in the operation, in the government of the Kingdom of Congo. Before the intrusion of the West, the king who belonged always to the Zinga clan. So you see, you can find it also in other culture inside.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally always been fascinated by the incantations of the Trinity across all different spheres of life, not just spiritual or universal, but even in politics, for example, where you have three branches of government.
But one thing I must add here is that the solar Trinity is different from the Trinity which is taught by the Catholic, the Protestant churches. That Trinity came from Pharaoh. Pharaoh has studied in Egypt. In Egypt, they told him that the Trinity are Trinitarian. They told him also that the Logos is also part of the divinity. But Pharaoh confused the Logos and the Creator. Because he confused the Logos and the Creator, in order to come to three gods, he added the psyche, the spirit, as the soul of the universe. So the Trinity became God the Father, according to them, God the Child, and God the Holy Spirit. And this is an intricate thing that even themselves cannot explain.